There's two things that have been in the news recently that have happened in APD. The first pertains to former Commander and now Lieutenant Jennifer Garcia. She was the head of internal affairs for, I think, just this year, but I think she's also been running the show at internal affairs for a much longer time than just this year. She has this year gone under investigation for altering documents, and it sounds as though the Chief of Police, Chief Michael Geyer, has sustained the allegations that were made regarding her altering of documents. What has happened is that she has been moved from her at-will position as commander into a unionized position. This has been characterized as her penalty or her punishment for that misconduct. Initially, Chief Geyer was talking about issuing a suspension, but no suspension has issued. I believe that we should open an investigation, or let me restate that. Not open an investigation. I do think that it would be prudent for us to review the investigation that has occurred, because this is, it strikes me as very serious. It's the head of internal affairs. There is an allegation of a felony, presumably to cover up some sort of misconduct that occurred by an officer. And Chief Geyer has not agreed to release the results of the investigation. So the public is left to speculate as to what the underlying subject matter is, how insidious is this problem. Without knowing more, I think it calls into question the integrity of every IA investigation that occurred under her watch. And she's been on watch for several years now. And we also have this issue of, which I kind of hate to bring up, but she's also, married to the second in command of all of APD. And so there's, we have a lot of conflicts, we have a lot of unknowns. I think there's a question as to whether or not this issue was referred to the district attorney or the attorney general for possible prosecution. Just a lot of things that really, I think, fall into our wheelhouse of oversight. And so I think that I would like to make a motion that we review the investigation that occurred, and that, and additionally that that the CPOA has the discretion to extend or to investigate on its own if it thinks that there are stones that have been left unturned or further questions that need to be asked. And so I make a motion that we conduct a review of the investigation into Commander Garcia's IA issue.
Let's move the motion first.
A motion. Maybe that's a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Are there any questions?
I want to ask a question about it.
Are there any questions?
Okay, so I did read in the paper, I read all about this, and obviously Lieutenant Garcia was part of our meetings for many years, for the 3 years I've been here. And so, yeah, I read about that, and it did say what the act was. I do appreciate what you're saying about, because one of the things that we're here to do is to evaluate the quality of investigations. And that's true in civilian complaints, and it's also true in officer-involved shootings. And it doesn't make any sense for us not to take a look at that, particularly because we should be able to take a look at that. Deputy Chief Garcia has been, before this group, he has been helpful to this group. And it really is important that even the thought of a conflict of interest that would be found in her favor because of that position would be wrongdoing. So I don't have a problem with that. I do have a question about, is she the only one? Because this item here says two different things. Are you purposely separating them?
Oh, yes, Chair Waits, Board Member Fine. I thought it would make most sense to take them one at a time.
Okay.
And so the first is this IA thing with Commander Garcia, and then I also was going to bring up the issue of potential cheating at the Law Enforcement Academy and whether or not that resulted in a forced retirement of Commander Sullivan next.
Yeah, that's what I assumed it was, but I just didn't know if this...
Yeah, I was just clarifying. Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Let's take them one at a time. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, and that is, what's, Director Harness, what's our authority and scope to do such an investigation as proposed?
Chair Waits, Member Dr. Cass, I believe it's within our purview to review internal affairs investigations. So we, by ordinance, have the ability to do so. So we can, because this was a internal affairs investigation. It's within the board's purview to review that internal affairs investigation.
Is it complicated by the fact that that an outside agency was hired to review this?
There may be some challenges as it comes forward, because my understanding is that it was done through the city attorney's office and it was not done through the department. So there may be some questions about attorney-client privilege and whether or not the board's ability to get those records can pierce that. So this is obviously an issue of first impression for this kind of a case. So we will go down the road and we'll work with our counsel to see what's the best way to accomplish what the board wants to do with the review.
Okay. Any other questions?
In reviewing for tonight our policies and procedures, we have the right to file a complaint as an organization, as a board. That would be dealt with by the agency. Anyway, so I just think there's double ways in which we could take a look at this. And I think it's probably wise. I want to make sure that it's clear that I don't know one way or the other, nor would any of us know whether or not whether there was any wrongdoing. But in the interest of our mission, it's our job to make sure that we understand that no wrongdoing was done, and I think for that reason it's important to do it. It's in APD's best interest to have us do it.
Yes, Chair Waits, Board Member Fine, certainly, and as Member Vandeventer points out, not only the implications for the department and the investigation itself, but the implications as it relates to the settlement agreement, which mandates that any criminal aspects of any investigation must be referred to the jurisdiction to make those decisions as to whether or not there's criminality, and those decisions cannot be made within the department.
And we're not in this case, is that correct?
That I do not know.
Okay, and that's something I think that we need to find out by our review of this
investigation.
Fair enough.
Okay. So let's complete the motion. The motion was to review the investigation that occurred. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Ayes have it.
Now we're going to do
Now
Commander Sullivan.
Okay, yes. So next up is a potential issue that I also think this board should explore. And that is pertaining to Commander Sullivan's recent forced retirement. At least that's what we have read, that the retirement was not voluntary. The appearance of the series of events is that Commander Sullivan exposed some questionable practices regarding testing at the academy, and thereafter he was forced to retire. And I think that the administration of APD portrayed that he was somehow standing in the way of the mandated reform efforts of the CASA, but that appears to be questionable because he had only been in his role for a very short time. So I think that we need to ask some questions about, what exactly was happening at the academy. Were officers cheating on their tests? And if so, who knew? Who approved it? Who let it lie? I think we need to know kind of the basic who, what, when, where, and why. I think not so much. I know that there was a question about whether or not it was proper to question the personnel decision, but I think that I'm interested in going, right past the personnel decision into, kind of the underlying events that resulted ultimately in a personnel change. And so I would like to, I'm open to suggestions. I haven't had a ton of time to think through what the best way for us to handle this is. I tend to think another investigation. In this situation, there is no investigation that's already occurred to review. And so I think that kind of what we're left with is needing to do our own investigation, which is what I would propose, unless, there's a better idea at the table.
I think, if I remember correctly from the newspaper, Commander Collins has said that he was forced to retire and that he is taking some personnel action or something. He may be suing, I'm not exactly sure, but he doesn't appear to be done with this. So there may be something for us to review. I don't want to see us get into actual personnel cases, but I think that if we're looking at something that is wrongdoing on the part of, or a whistleblower, somebody saying this is, this isn't right, and all we have is this person saying, I got fired and it wasn't right, that may or may not be true. And I want to walk the line between personnel and between a practice that would, or something that's wrongdoing. And so I don't know how to split that, but I think that if there's going to be some kind of a hearing in which that employee, that could be as close as we'd get to an investigation.
Yeah.
And Chair Waits, may I reply?
Sure.
Chair Waits, Board Member Fine. I'm not as interested in the personnel aspect.
Well, I heard you say that, yeah.
Yeah, as I am in the issues that may or may not have been occurring in the law enforcement academy itself. I think that the way the academy run is really, really critical. We're here kind of like the heart of the matter when it comes to reforming APD has been stated and restated as culture change. And one of the best opportunities to make those put those cultural changes into effect is at that level, the training level when officers are brought in. So it seems to me that if we have misconduct like that happening at that level, when someone before they even walk in the door, and we let it go unaddressed, then we are potentially allowing these problems to proliferate.
So, may I make a suggestion?
I think
You have to say.
we haven't gone around for second comments.
Oh, go ahead.
Maybe the way to look at it, given what you've just said, is that we look at did this not happen in terms of the training? Was there investigation about whether or not there was cheating going on, which is the issue you're talking about. So maybe that's how we separate it. Maybe that's the line, and we say that personnel issue is not our business, but this issue about whether or not this is accurate and what's happening subsequently is our business. That would make me feel better. I don't know how you feel about it.
Dr. Cass?
Yeah, what I would suggest is that we limit the investigation to allegations that there was wrongdoing associated with the testing at the academy, and I think those are fairly strongly alleged, and I think there's some evidence to support those. There was court testimony, I believe, by Commander Sullivan in front of the federal judge. So I think it would be straightforward to limit it to those allegations of misconduct at the academy.
Okay.
Does it? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something?
No, that's fine. I agree.
Would it be better and more practical to ask somebody from APD to come and talk to us about that at our next meeting, as opposed to an investigation? I mean, I don't know what an investigation would, if that's appropriate for an investigation. Maybe we just want to hear from APD about what they have to say. We already know what Commander Sullivan has to say.
One, we could leave that up to Director Harness to invite someone to the from the academy, or to make inquiries to, see where we could go from here. Does that?
Chair Fine, I'm sorry, that was a year ago. Chair Waits,
my old life.
Board Member Dr. Cass. What comes to mind is why don't we do some research to establish the predicate? So why not request testing records for a period of time? So from 2010 through 2017, to see if there's an established pattern which can be identified, so that then we can codify exactly what the investigation needs to reveal, and so we can identify with whom we need to speak and with whom we need to interview in order to establish whether or not there was systemic cheating at the academy. I can tell you that in the investigation related to 132-18, of which I spoke previously, we requested the training records for all of those officers involved, and we were provided them within basically 36 hours of the academy receiving the request. So there hasn't been any hesitation over there. So perhaps if you want to identify a period of time, or you want to try and establish a predicate on which to base an investigation, maybe that's the first step.
Chair Waits? Thank you, Director Harness. I think that I would like to make a motion to that effect. So I would move.
Let's
oh, sorry. Was there? Sorry.
We already have a motion on the floor. We need to vote on that.
We had the motion. We didn't make a motion on this one yet.
We didn't on this one?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we started. We just need to withdraw the motion.
Withdraw the motion. I don't remember making a motion.
Okay, we didn't make a motion because I have it written down. You did.
Did I make
now we can make a motion. Yeah.
Okay, so I would move that we conduct a preliminary investigation to determine whether or not we have a factual predicate for further investigation into testing practices, et cetera, but not limited to testing practices alone, of the academy, and that we make those requests within this 30-day period, so that if we decide we would like to take further action on it, we can do it at the next board meeting.
Okay, I'm not going to repeat that.
Chair Waits, I think that it would be helpful to establish 2 tiers, so that we're looking at academy trainees who are trained officers in training versus those that are coming for in-service, so veteran officers who are going for their in-service training for the year. So I think we need to make sure that we establish 2 tracks there.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Can I get a second?
And I guess I should move to amend the motion to incorporate the 2 tiers that Director Harness has just mentioned, since the CPOA will be doing this investigation and finds that useful. So I amend the motion to incorporate 2 tiers.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Waits.
All right.